Hello. So in this video today, I am welcoming my very good friend, Barbara Juniper, who is many things. She is a spiritual mentor, a spiritual elder, in my opinion, on many levels, not just chronologically, a sound healer, and a Dharma teacher. So today, Barbara and I are going to talk about something very near and dear to both of our hearts that we've talked about many times on our own, which is the healing of the feminine and Barbara's wisdom around that. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Martha. Thank you. Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. And before we start, I would just love to acknowledge that I'm sitting on unceded coastal Miwok territory, as I feel that it's very important for us nowadays to acknowledge the land that we're sitting on and the indigenous people that inhabited this land as part of the healing of the feminine.
Yeah. Coastal Umash land.
Yeah.
Down the coast from you.
Yeah, down the coast. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So when you feel called to speak to the healing of the feminine, what comes up? What's that calling or that prayer in you? Where's the starting or the seed place for you with that? What does it mean to you?
Oh, it's so vast, and it's so personal, my own story in terms of my own inner healing and my healing journey regarding myself embodied in this female form. And I do use the pronouns she, her, and hers. And I know that you're really focusing on not only the binary, the masculine, the feminine, but also the non-binary, the trans, the whole scope of gender identity. And for me, it's definitely been around the feminine. And it's very interesting today because I pulled a card when I was lighting my candle and my incense for this interview. The card that I pulled was balance, and I thought, yes. Because for me, when I think about healing the feminine, it's not just the female bodied feminine, it's all of us and our relationship to the feminine, and also the relationship that we have to our earth, who is our great mother, who gives us everything we have here as we live and breathe and walk on this amazing star that we call home.
Yeah.
That the healing of the feminine is directly related to our relationship to the earth. And in particular, in this last week, I had the amazing opportunity to go down to Antelope Valley. It's Southern California, for those of you who may not know. It's an incredible preserve of California poppies. And there was a moment when I was so struck by the beauty. We're living in really powerful times right now where we also have images of destruction, and we know there's destruction and war going on and a lot of suffering. But in that moment where I was kneeling in this field of poppies and these other amazing fields of wildflowers that weren't just the poppies, I was so moved by my love and my passion for the earth and for taking good care of her, so that our children and our children's children and our, the 7 generations of the indigenous people of these lands, the prayers that they made, that just a profound prayer that we can do whatever healing we need to do so that she can heal. So I feel that the two, you can't disconnect the healing of the feminine with the healing of the earth.
What do you consider the feminine? How would you define it?
for me, and this also takes in, my Buddhist background, and Dharma practice. The feminine is about openness. It's about receptivity. It's nurturing. It's compassion. And there's many different faces of the feminine, but it's a sense of earth also. When I think of, well, what does the feminine mean to me? Like, look at the ground, look at the earth we're living on. She gives, she's generous, she flows, she has rivers that flow, she's solid, she's nourishing, she's all encompassing. So for me, the feminine has all those qualities, and all of us, no matter how we identify gender wise, have these qualities of openness, these qualities of nourishment, these qualities of love, these qualities of profound compassion that nourish life. The feminine to me is also the field. This painting here is Prajnaparamita.
Yep.
In the Buddhist tradition, she is the mother of all the Buddhas. She is her, it's the Heart Sutra is the Sutra of Prajnaparamita. And the interesting thing about it is that I also see the feminine as this field of potentiality, like the womb of the universe, the womb of an actual woman where life is nourished, life is nurtured. We birth children. Some of us who are in these female bodies have chosen to bring forward children into the world, and that's an amazing potential. So there's also that element of this womb of creative potential that has so much to do with the feminine. And how do we access that? How do we connect with our own deep, infinite creative potential to bring forward our most beautiful selves, our most radiant selves? And again, the balance part that I see with that card that I pulled up is it's not at the cost of the quote unquote, masculine, like is bad, bad, bad. There are qualities of the patriarchy that has been the dominant paradigm on our planet for so many thousands of years, that are not even the healthy masculine. Do you know what I mean? It's like even men need to connect with, or male identified people need to connect with those qualities of love, of vulnerability, of tenderness, of openness. It's not like it's just relegated to someone in a female body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There was a question just right there.
Yes, the questions come and they go.
Yeah. I'm gonna just tune in because it's gone now, and so maybe I'm supposed to ask something else.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second. Oh, right. So in your sense of life, or your belief system, or your experiences, when you speak about the healing of the feminine, that implies that there's a not healing, a hurt somewhere.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the hurt that is needed to be healed? Or what do you mean when you say healing?
Healing, yes. Well, healing is an interesting word, isn't it? Because it doesn't always mean curing something. It's coming into, again, a balanced relationship. I can speak to my own story, which I think is probably the best place to come from.
Yeah.
I was in a long-term marriage that within that marriage there was a significant amount of dysfunction, and yet as a young woman entering in, I didn't have really a fully developed sense of self. And so over the years, that sense of self got smaller and smaller and smaller, and my self-esteem got lower and lower and lower, and my voice got softer and softer and softer. And it was as if there was no one home. I don't
Mm.
know if any of the listeners, who are tuning into this particular interview, if you can relate to feeling like you've lost the sense of who am I? What do I love? What do I feel is important? What are my values? And you've been kind of subsumed in someone else's reality. That's my experience. And so the healing of that was actually coming to terms with the truth of the situation that I was in, and not only the truth of the environment and the situation, but becoming truthful with myself about what was happening on the inside. That if I stayed in that particular dynamic, it wasn't going to be pretty for me personally as a woman, because I was just out of touch with my own being. And so when I say the healing of the feminine, for me, what it means is coming to know my own self, coming to turn and face the places where I feel broken, where I feel um, out of touch with what's truly important for me, where I've denied myself, where I've taken care of others at the expense of taking care of myself, and really having the courage to step out, which I did. It took a long time, but it was, at year 27, it was like, you know what, if I stay, I'm going to get really sick,
Yeah.
or something not so good. You know how life works where, it gives you that little tap, and if you ignore the tap, it's a little bit harder push. And then, so I didn't want the kick, and it can be very scary, in those situations to actually step out of something that's known into an unknown. And yet, it's like the frog in the water story. As the frog gets put into the cold water, and as the heat's turned up, it doesn't notice that it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. I mean, that's a horrible
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
horrible example, but when we're in situations that aren't necessarily healthy for us, we can adapt and become kind of comfortable in what's not healthy because it's known.
Right.
So for me, again, my personal story around the healing of the feminine was stepping out of a dysfunctional marriage and free falling, really, but free falling into the arms of learning how to trust myself again, and trust that the universe is a benevolent universe. She's the great mother, the great compassionate mother of all that is there to hold us during those times. And so for me, healing is really about returning, remembering who we are, why we're here, um, that we are loved, and that love can start right here with ourselves,
Mm.
towards ourselves. That self-love, that self-compassion, that is primary for me in healing the feminine. And I don't care whether you're in a female bodied, male body, it's turning towards, how do I nourish myself? How do I nurture those aspects of my being that have been neglected, have been denied, have been put on the shelf for a lot of other reasons? And being really patient with oneself. I feel like part of the feminine for me is patience.
Mm.
It's a different time frame. It's like allowing things to happen. Yes, you have to take action. Like I had to step out. I had to do that, but then also knowing that it takes time to begin to heal. It takes time to begin to hear your own inner voice, your own inner wisdom. It's like that beautiful poem of Mary Oliver's about, leaving through it was a stormy night, and the journey, it's called. It's a really beautiful poem about doing what you knew you needed to do. And even though the voices were calling and crying at you, you went out into the stormy night and you followed that voice.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it just makes me think of the timing of the cycle of life. Like you can't speed up a flower because, blooming.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I would really Im- impress upon that too, because no one can tell you what your own personal timing is in
Yeah,
terms of those choices that are the hard choices where we realize we're in a situation. I don't care whether it's a relationship or a job or wherever you are, but you realize, ooh, this may not be my most optimal environment, but there is a natural timing. There is a that's where the patience comes in, right?
mhm.
Because to me, feminine time is a little more organic. It's not so goal oriented, yeah.
Yeah, and it feels maybe in rhythm with the cycles of actual life that is way beyond us, that we are part of, that we are, but are so much more than our brains can logically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that cycles back around to the relationship of our healing of our feminine to the earth and tuning in to these earth cycles, because there are cycles as well. There are cycles as well. There's spring
Literally.
and summer and fall and winters of our own life, and I'm sure we've all been through them many, many times. And it may not coincide exactly with the cycles of nature. Like it might, springtime is here right now in California. It's busting out all over, and yet you might be in a winter cycle of your life.
Hmm.
There's a lot of, as you know from the people you've been interviewing, there's a lot of powerful transits happening right now that are bringing up a lot of stuff for people. And even though it's springtime, you may be experiencing the storms of fall, and that's where, for me, the healing of the feminine is a learning how to deeply listen.
Hmm.
That's the receptivity of the feminine. It's listening, it's opening. The ears are a more feminine sense organ that we have on the body, because they go in. The sound comes in. It's not like the eyes projecting out. The sound comes in, and so there's this quality for me with the feminine of learning how to really deeply listen, because some of the things that we are being shown and told and are being offered to us are coming in without words. They're coming
Absolutely.
in through perception, and they're coming in through sound, and in a way that's kind of drop down out of the conceptual mind and open up to receive in a very different kind of way than we're used to.
Yeah. Um, I want to go back to something you said and then ask, I want to say something, then I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
So you were talking about your marriage, and what that was reminding me of was yesterday I was with four female friends, women, friend, mother, mamas, fellow mamas, fellow
Mm-hmm.
mothers, and we had an epic, I don't know. We were together for 5.5 hours. And the majority of that conversation was about patriarchy and marriage and all of the above that you just talked about. But one of the things that, I'll just speak for myself because I don't want to violate their realities, but
Yeah.
one of the things I said to them was that in my own marriage, I was just shocked, and I've said this to you before on a friend level, I was shocked that I, as a feminist, I mean, an ardent feminist, like not just a little tiny feminist, like really, like at 19, I shaved my head, decided I want to be a lesbian separatist. And, like I was mad, you know, at that stage in my life. And so by, a few years later, when I realized, oh, I'm actually not only attracted to women, actually, I ended up marrying a man. And but in that, what I ended up getting into in that marriage was classic self, what's the word, a martyrdom, classic martyrdom,
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways. And it took such intense rearranging of my own sense of self, my own sense of identity to leave. And I don't think that leaving is the answer for everybody. Absolutely
No,
not.
no, no,
Every
no. Yeah.
relationship has, I want to give that caveat because we're both talking about having left our marriages. And that is not what I'm advocating in the slightest.
Yeah.
I'm just saying one of the things I took away from that experience was that the cultural expectations of the patriarchy, even in someone like me or even in someone like you, were so intense
Mm-hmm.
that I found myself in an extreme version of being the female martyr that could have made, like, I felt the same way. If I had stayed, I might have, something bad would have happened. Like, it would not have been, it just would have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we were, all five of us yesterday were talking about this phenomenon, and we're all extreme feminists, and this is a pattern for us. So I was saying yesterday, well, we are in this moment where the need to come back into the wholeness of ourselves as beings, but also as people who do identify as women and who do identify with feminine energies largely. It's a very recent turning. It's like we were talking about, we were reflecting on how we can't believe that we are still carrying this problem. And yet, in terms of the timeline of patriarchy, going away, we're still in it. So of course we're still carrying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that leads up to my question, which is, when we are sitting with this need and this desire, this really true need to heal the feminine, as you're putting it, what are some things that come to you in terms of how do you do that personally, or how do you see our world doing that? Anything that comes up for you?
Yeah, well, one of the first things that comes up for me is I've taken a little break, but for a while, and I will be starting these up again. Is I have women's circles, women wisdom ways, and I think one of the ways, particularly for female-bodied people who identify as women, or even other bodied people who identify as women, getting together and being able to. I think it's really important to share our stories to in a completely safe environment, in an environment where people are not necessarily giving advice or commenting, but you're just free to sit together, do some meditation together, tune in to our connectedness as a whole, that we are individuals for sure, but we're connected through this web of life. So there's a sense of belonging. That's really important, because it can feel really lonely when you're making that shift out of what's known into a new frontier. So that's one thing. And then also being able to just share where you are on any given day. There was always sharing parts of those circles that I lead. And the other part for me is, for sure, spending time in nature, grounding, if you can, if you have access to that. Because when you spend time in nature, you're out of the busyness of our culture, and our culture is, it's dominated with messaging of you're not good enough, you don't have enough, if you just get this, you'll be better. And when you're out in nature, and I say out in nature free of devices, and just tuning into the earth herself, there's great wisdom. There's just great wisdom in the earth. No matter where you are, whether you're by the ocean, whether you're walking in a park and you're just taking in the trees, maybe you sit back and you lean against a tree. Trees have amazing, amazing sentience, I believe. I don't believe that, I mean, there's all the work around the mother trees and all the intelligence, but for me, being in nature is another way for me to tune out the messaging of the culture and turn my gaze and my listening deeply inward to what's personal for me, what maybe actions I need to take, or again, just tuning into what you were talking about, the wholeness of
Mm,
my being. It's
mm,
really important to put yourself in environments where you can tune into that. Because, like I said, so much of our messaging in our Western civilization, in our consumer culture, is that we're not enough and we're seriously lacking on all kinds of fronts. And from a Buddhist perspective, again, it's that same thing of we all have a perfectly beautiful, perfect essence. Some people call it your Buddha nature. Some people refer to it as basic goodness. But we need to create spaces. So another thing that's coming up for me, besides women's groups, getting out in nature, is create a little shrine, a little altar in your own home where
mm,
you can sit and you can connect with whatever source is for you, whatever helps you open into the beauty of your own being. That's really important. It's really important to ground on the earth, but also to connect to something that's, again, it's going to be very unique and different for every person. But whatever for you is leads you to a sense of something greater than yourself, something that brings you a sense of awe and wonder and curiosity. So those are three things, finding yourself a women's group maybe to join that you can share your story, and again, check it out, see if it's the right fit for you. Spending time in nature and creating an altar in your home or a space where you can sit and just be quiet. I mean, the other thing too, of course, being a sound healer is, connecting with music you love
mm,
to help you process emotions too. I mean, there was a lot of time there, when I first left the marriage, where it was stormy. There was a lot of grief. And I think particularly now, it's really important for us to be able to find ways to tend to our grief so that it doesn't become a blockage for us in our lives going forward, and to really honor and see as sacred our grief. So that too is a part of coming into wholeness of yourself, coming into the healing part, because we can't, well, we can, and many people do, spiritual bypass where they just, oh yeah, I'm good, it's good, I'm all over that, that's good. And it's like, yeah, check a little deeper.
wait 5 minutes.
Wait 5 minutes, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
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 Well, and another thing that is coming up again, back to the painting on the amazing painting on your
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you're the person 2 years ago who introduced me to the Dakini concept. And um, I'm wondering if there's anything around the various aspects of the feminine or the archetypes of
Mhm.
the feminine or the manifestations of the feminine that's particularly been particularly healing for you,
Yeah.
or you feel like is particularly powerful potentially for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would say the awakened female form of the green Tara
Knew
in
you
the
were going to say
Buddhist
that.
in
Yeah.
the Buddhist tradition. For those of you who may not know, Tara she is an awakened female Buddha, and she is essentially all of us, inwardly, but we work with the outward form as well. And what I do know about Tara is she has 21 different forms. The common one that most people know about is the green Tara, but she also has a lot of different forms that are in different colors and have different qualities about them. Some are more what they call wrathful or semi-wrathful, some are peaceful, and each one has a quality of healing about them. And I think this exemplifies exactly what you're talking about, that the faces of the feminine are varied and many.
Mhm.
And I think about these two Navajo grandmothers who I helped take care of when they came out for the 500 years of resistance, you know, some time ago. It was quite some years ago, but they came out to California, and these were the grandmas that were standing up down at Big Mountain at the fence lines, protecting their land, you know. So there's a ferocity too, you know. The feminine isn't just always gentle and like, yeah, whatever, you know. It can be very fiercely compassionate and protective of children and the downtrodden, and there's many examples of women who embody that throughout history. You know, look at Harriet Tubman. You know, she was fiercely passionate about helping people to freedom, to liberation. So she was a modern day Tara, you know. And yes, Tara's been amazing. And what's interesting that you bring that up, because I was going to talk a little bit about Tara from one of the early stories of her is her name was Wisdom Moon, Princess Wisdom Moon, and she was a very powerful and realized practitioner in that time that she lived some eons ago. And it was a time when the masculine, or quote unquote the patriarchy, was more dominant. And so she had reached this level of realization, and the men in her community, the practitioners and the monks, were saying, ah, yes, if you could just now pray to be reborn as a man, you would become fully realized. And saying that, I think not necessarily to think of it as a misogynistic thing, but they were just, in those days, they believed that if you were a man, you'd have more opportunity. But her response was, ah, from here, there is no male, there is no female. So again, bringing this idea of masculine, feminine, the binary, you know, the dualistic thinking, when one is fully awakened and fully realized, you're not bound by these concepts of male and female. And yet at the same time, she vowed then to continue to come back in a female form. And I think that for me, what that says is that she wanted to show that it really doesn't matter as far as awakening, full awakening is concerned. It doesn't matter what form you're in. It's really about your essence flowering into its full potential. And yet she chose the female form just to say, we can do it here too. You know, it's from where I sit, there is no male, no female. And that's a beautiful story, because it was really powerful and part of my healing process to be connected to a female awakened Buddha, to an awakened being who chose to be in this female form.
Mhm.
And has been very inspiring for me, and very, very close, and very healing. Very healing. I mean, Tara, when you connect with Tara, oh my goodness, it's such unconditional love and such compassion. And um, her right leg is extended, showing her readiness to come to the aid of any being who calls her. You know, awakened beings are not limited by space and time. We can't, our minds, our small minds can't even wrap our concepts around that, but it's so vast. The compassion is so vast. And her aspiration and her fulfillment of that aspiration is she helps remove fear, all the different kinds of fear, from the subtlest kinds of anxiety to the grossest kinds of, you know, fear of a thunderstorm, you know, or rampaging elephants or whatever it is, you know. So she's a really beautiful being to connect with, especially in these times when there's so much unknown and there's so much collective anxiety and so much fear about what's going to happen regarding our planet and climate change. And you know, when you connect with Tara, there's a beautiful meditation. In fact, I'll just say that on Monday nights, I'm a member of the Sukhasiddhi Foundation, which is a Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana organization and center, and there's a free meditation class that I lead on Monday nights, and the last Monday of every month we do a brief Tara practice. So if anyone's interested in coming to that, it's a lovely way to get to know her.
Maybe I need to do that sometime.
And you don't have to worry about if you've ever done it before, because it's completely guided. It's completely guided.
Beautiful. Well, that makes me think of one more thing, which is when I'm praying on why am I asked to even hold the symposium or hold the space for whatever this is meant to be for people and for our world. Of course, what I am tapped into is source, right? And my experience of that in my praying, as I've told you many times, every day, I get taken into this place outside of the membrane of space and the space-time continuum. And it's this place that's like a black void of nothing and everything. And it's like ultimate peace, ultimate rest, like deep. That's the kind of feeling of it. And in that place, there's no such thing as gender. It's not a concept. And yet we, in the space-time continuum, like once you come back through that membrane, there's so much popping. Like the way I see it, the way I'm shown is like these lights, just like the stars, I'm assuming, just pop, pop, pop. They're popping, and there's so much action and relating literally every nano atom, any nano particle of anything, every particle of anything has a resonance and a relationship to literally everything. Particle of literally everything else, right?
Yes.
And that's the ultimate reality, and it's a constant bouncing of energies back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so, and there, that relationship of the bouncing back and forth is a binary, is a polarity. I mean, that just in terms of physics, it's just true.
It's the nature of our relative universe.
Yes, there you go. And I find it fascinating that these entities, these energies, who I experience as being, I experience all things of life being energetics of source that have come sort of quote unquote down and are manifesting and doing a dance of source, infinite types. So these beings, these archetypes that we call Tara or whoever, have these binary, these gendered forms, and it does serve a healing purpose for us. So yes, the ultimate reality is there is no gender, there is no time and no space, there is nothing, and there is everything. And yet in our world, the dance of life takes on these forms. And so it's a paradox,
Yeah.
And it's something I don't know. I sit with it.
Well, the way I understand it, again, I'm going to have to draw on the Buddhist teachings, because that's what I'm so steeped in, is that when a Buddha awakens, when the Buddha awakened, under the Bodhi tree so many years ago, the Buddha mind, the awakened mind, is that potential that you're talking about. And the impulse then for a being to come into form is only out of compassion for other sentient beings, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And and the way I see it and what you were describing is there's this field of potential. It's like undifferentiated potential, right? And then it subtler and subtler or it goes from the very very subtle to come down into more dense
Yes.
form,
Yes.
right?
That's how I
And
feel.
there's all those levels of subtlety down into denser form, and the way I understand it is then these beings, these awakened beings, often, like you think, like Dalai Lama right now, the current Dalai Lama is a, it is said that he is a manifestation of Chenrezig, of Avalokiteshvara, who is the great awakened bodhisattva of infinite compassion, right? And that essence, that mind essence of Chenrezig has now come to us in this human form of the Dalai Lama so we can relate,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
relational quality to it that we need that as human beings. We need to be able to relate to it so that it can open our own potential for that awakened state of mind, of that wholeness that you're talking about, that perfection, that essence of our own being that is completely pure and perfect. And it's hard for us to touch into that because we've been so kind of programmed with other ideas and beliefs about who we are and what we can and can't do. But when we have a being like the Dalai Lama, who is the essence of great compassion, we get to taste it as human beings. It's like, wow. And he's not the only one. There have been saints and sages and amazing unsung heroes and heroines throughout history that are helping us to remember who we really are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, as you said, going back to what you said earlier, also our planet
Yeah.
herself is another one. She's kind of, she's not personified. She's not in human form. So it's maybe we have to expand
we have
our
to expand our
yeah a little bit more, but
yeah.
it is the reality that she's
it is a reality. Yes.
Yeah.
The grandmothers, I was on a call with the grandmothers during the fall equinox, and I asked them, what can we do for the earth right now? Two of the Florida Mayo, and I can't remember, there was two grandmothers from the 13 grandmothers, and they kind of looked at each other, and then they looked at me and they said, well, right now she's in a transition. It's like a woman, it's like she's birthing herself, right? Or she's birthing, and we have to be able to hold the transition right now like we would be present for a mother who's giving birth, and to be that compassionate and loving. And so I think what's coming up for me right now too, going back to that question about what can we do, there's those things I mentioned earlier, but I also feel that because our relationship with the feminine is so profoundly linked to our relationship with the earth, that when you go out into nature, it's very important to put your hands on the earth and just give her love. Just give the mother our love and our care and our concern. And when you go into the forest or when you go to the ocean, typically our colonial mindset is to see what we can take from it. Even it's like, oh, I went and I had this beautiful day and the ocean breeze and everything. And I think part of our healing of not only the feminine, but just our relational health with the world we live in is to think more reciprocally. Reciprocity. Go there and not only take the shell that is a beautiful shell, but think about offering a flower to Yamayat, to the Mother Ocean, offering some cornmeal, or before you take your bite of food, take a little bit and offer it to the earth, so that we start to generate this mindset that we are not separate. We are not just there to take and go. We are there in relationship with this incredible earth that we live on. And you can thank the trees when you're walking through a forest. You can put your hand on a tree and just thank it and send love to that tree and all its relatives that are surrounding it, to all the life that is there. It's super important in terms of healing, I believe. if we're
Absolutely.
going to flip our mindset at this time on our planet and learn to do things a little differently.
And this is obvious, but it's suddenly dawning on me, this obvious reality, which is that when we're in that consumerist mindset, we are we're operating from a sense of being broken, disconnected and broken, none of which is real. And that when we come into that reciprocal giving and receiving
Yes.
way of being, it reinforces the reality of the wholeness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to cry, but anyway.
Yeah, it is tearful. It is we live on a beautiful planet, and we can create realities with how we are, our words, our thoughts, our actions.
Right.
And it's important to also know that what we do makes a difference. We're every day, even though we can be overwhelmed by the massive size of the issues that we're all dealing with today, we are not separate. So whatever we do that's in a positive manner is it's feeding the field. It's helping to create vibrations and frequencies in the field that are helping to bring balance to
Mm.
what's been so out of balance for such a long time.
Yeah. Well, and Heather Ensworth, who's also in the symposium, I'm reading her book, like I've told you off camera, and one of the things she talks about a lot is this coming back into our sense of complete connection with the cosmos, with all of life, with the planet Earth, with, and so for me, a lot of my own personal grief around this is a grieving of the message that we are broken in any way whatsoever, and
Yeah.
none of it is true, etc.
Yeah.
And and I also am feeling so grateful that we have the choice in every single moment to come back into the reality of our wholeness and connection, and um, that so many of us are choosing to continually come back to that,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the point of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
you, is there anything else you want to say, or would you like to close with a little prayer or meditation or?
Sure. We can close with a little meditation. That'd be great. So I just invite everyone who's listening to, if you're comfortable, maybe close your eyes, get yourself in a comfortable position. And I'm going to ring this bowl and we'll start just a little meditation. So just take a moment and let go of everything we've been talking about. Feel yourself in your body. Turn your gaze inward for a moment and just check in. Feel your sits bones on your cushion of whatever surface you're sitting on. Connecting with the earth, this beautiful earth mother that we've been talking about, and feel her support. Let go, let your body relax into that support. And take a moment and just tune into your breath, letting it be easy and natural and relaxed. Following the inflow and the outflow, and just let yourself relax and be here in this moment with your breath. Again, letting go of anything that we've just been talking about, letting go of any thoughts about what's going to happen next or what you're going to do after this interview. And give yourself permission to just be here in this present moment without judging it or without trying to manipulate anything to be different than it is. Just opening up to your experience right here in this very moment, the vividness, meeting yourself with kindness, with gentleness, just allowing yourself to be in this moment. And whatever is here for you, in your experience, whatever physical sensations, whatever emotions, again, just meet it with love, meet it with kindness. Be present to your own experience. And know that you are a precious child of the universe. You are loved unconditionally. You are held in the arms of the Great Mother. And if it feels appropriate, if it feels right for you, you can place your hand on your heart, one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And just offer yourself appreciation, gratitude, recognition of the blessedness of your own being, that you are a gift. No matter what your outside circumstances look like, you are a gift. There is no other soul that is like you. You are unique. And just allow yourself to take that in. And then just let your hands fall back to your lap and just sit with how that felt for you. And again, if it feels resonant for you, if it feels right, extend the prayer from your own heart, from your own being, that all beings can connect with their own beauty, their own basic goodness. All beings can connect with the love that is there for them, and that they are unconditionally loved and cared for. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And come back to our virtual circle here. Just that, just a short moment of just tuning into the present moment is so healing. You know, that's something else that can be added to those lists of things to do to help generate this sense of real recognition of the wholeness of who we are, and that we're okay. You know, we're really on a deep and profound level, we're okay.
It also reminded me of the when I tune into the present moment, I notice what's present.
Yeah.
And that whatever is present has a wisdom.
Yeah.
And so what I personally was feeling was this grief in my heart, right? And I realized, oh, that as we're healing our sense of ourselves and the feminine and our world and our relationship to the planet and all of these things, I realized, oh, the grieving actually has a purpose. Like that's part of the process of healing, is letting the grieving happen too.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
One of my teachers refers to it as thawing the ice of grief into the river of mourning.
Oh my God, say that one more time.
I attribute this to Susan Shannon, who's an incredible interfaith chaplain and worked with prisoners on death row in San Quentin for many, many years.
Mm,
And the importance, I was just in a class with her recently, the importance of tending to our grief.
mm,
And her comment was, and I attribute this to her, thawing out or melting the ice of the river of grief into, or the ice of the river of grief into the river of mourning, MOURN, where
mm,
we're actively mourning. The grief isn't solidified in our bodies, but there's an act of mourning, which is very healthy. And it helps move that energy so that we can be freed to then move on with our lives. But we can and we do this spiritual bypass, but it doesn't serve us. If we skip over the grief and we try and pretend that it's not there, there's a part of us that gets locked up around it, and that part of us is held energetically then, and it's not, that energy isn't free to use for our creativity, for our joy, for our work and our passions. It's locked up in that ice of grief. So the
well, and it makes
melting.
right, absolutely. As I was sitting there, as I was feeling this river of grief that wants to come through my heart. So it's interesting that you put it that way.
Yeah.
And then I was noticing that I would have a choice to either be up, up in that realm of the nothingness of source,
Mm-hmm.
which would be spiritual back for me, would in
Yes.
that moment be
Yes.
spiritual
Yes.
bypassing, absolutely, or to be here in my body,
That's
where
right.
I've chosen to be in this lifetime, and allow that grief to move through, which actually for me, I was seeing it as coming through me, and then it would allow that energy to return to source.
Mm-hmm.
It was like in our bodies, we have a different way of being with our compassion and our passion, all of why we're here,
Yeah.
has a grounded reality in our earth reality, that's not only about being being
It's not about up and out. It's
right.
down and in. It's like awakening doesn't happening outside of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you so much. So it feels weird to switch to this, but
it's okay.
Yeah, in terms of you and how people can connect with you, people who are,
they can connect with me through my website, which is www.barbarajuniper.com. Also, if they're interested in joining the Monday night meditation that I do, they could go on to Sukhasiddhi, that's SUKHASIDDHI, sukhasiddhi.org.
great. Yeah, no.
That's, you would just go to the Monday night meditation. It's called Opening the Gate, and you have to register through that. Again, it's free. There's, Donna, which is, if you feel like donating, you can. And that fourth Monday of every month is the brief Tara practice, which is open to anyone, whether you've had experience with it or not. So
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you also are available for
counseling sessions, spiritual counseling, yes. Sound healing, I'm doing more in groups now, in person, now that things have kind of relaxed around COVID. And if there are people listening who are in the Bay Area, I have a private office in Marin where I do individual sessions, which is a really beautiful, what I find is that when you're on your path and you feel like you've bumped up against something that's kind of a limit or an obstacle, when you combine the mentoring with the sound healing, that there's just a way that it helps the energy to shift and move and transform really powerfully. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But you also do the spiritual mentoring online for anybody.
Online for anybody, on the phone, on Zoom, where around the world. Yeah. Whoever. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll have
Yeah.
all of your info available for people.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a joy. It's been a joy. And may you all, whoever's listening to this, may you all find your inner beauty and heal what needs to be healed with grace and with love. And we need you at this
Hmm.
time on the planet. We
Yeah.
need you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.